Okay, so in this video, we will look after the AWS CLI. So how to install the AWS CLI and how to configure it in the Windows. And we'll try to run like one or two commands just to check whether the AWS CLI has been successfully installed or not. So basically to access the AWS services, so there are like multiple ways. The first and the very easy way is like we can like log in into the AWS console and click on any of these AWS services and we can explore. So which is very naive way. And the other two ways are like using the AWS CLI commands, that is from the terminal or the command prompt. We can hit some commands which will interact with our AWS services. And the third way is using the programming. Right. So programming we will cover in like later videos. So in this video, like we will like see what is AWS CLI and how to install and how to set up. So to install, so open the Google and write AWS CLI install. So open the official documentation of the AWS. So it has been opened. So now you could see AWS CLI install and update instructions. So we are going to install on the Windows. If you are Linux or Mac OS, so we can like see the instructions from here as well. So I am on the Windows, so let's see the Windows. So in the Windows, it's very easy. We need to install one installer, that is a .msi, and we just need to click like next. But before installing, so let me show you whether the AWS is installed or not. So right now AWS is not installed because I'm like checking AWS hyphen version, so it says that it is not recognized any command because we have not installed. Right. So let's click on it. So as soon as we click on it, it start downloading it, and it will download like within like minutes. And after that, like we can like start installing it. So I have like one of the version already. So let me see if this is the one version. So I have installed like both the versions. So let's suppose it has been installed like downloaded. So double click on it. So click next, accept the terms and condition, click next, and install. And yes, so it will take a just like 1 or 2 minutes maximum, and the download will be finished. So let's wait for that. Yeah, so download has been finished. So now the download has been finished. So now I have to cross check whether now the AWS is installed or not. So it still say like AWS is not a like a recognized internal command. Something is like something is wrong. So let cross check. So if we go to the control panel just to check whether it has been installed or not. So if I click on AWS, so I could see like AWS has been installed and version is 2.9, which is fine. The latest version is AWS CLI version 2. AWS command line version is, so it should work. So let's try again. AWS hyphen version. Yeah. So now it's working fine. So AWS hyphen version, it says AWS CLI is 2.9.0. And if I do the dir, so there should be like one folder .aws which is not there. Anyhow, ideally it should be there. Like there should be one folder like .aws. Anyhow, no problem. So AWS has been installed. All right. So our like this work is done. But now we have installed the AWS. So how we can interact with our like cloud? So let's suppose uh, I just need to run one command to get the number of users. So users exist in the IAM, right? So if I click on the IAM, so from the console I can see like how many users are there. So I can see only one user is there, Sumanshu and Kana, right? But this is using the console. But is there any command? So yes, there is a command. So if you go to AWS CLI IAM commands, so you can click on the official documentation. So AWS CLI commands, configure the AWS CLI. One second. AWS CLI commands IAM. Yeah, so we have this. So let's click on the version 2. So because we are using the version 2. So there are so many commands. You can create the user, you can delete the user. So we have to use the list users. So there should be some command called list users. So there is a command called list users. So click on it. So just to check like what is the command syntax. So generally the command syntax is AWS. That is the which cloud we are using. So AWS, which services we are using, IAM, and then the command which operation we want to use. So list users, and there are so many other parameters which we are not like giving. There are so many other parameters like they are giving, but for the time being let's make it very simple. AWS IAM list user. So if I click on it, it is giving me some error. It says that unable to locate the credentials. So the reason is I am running the AWS command. So how my system knows I have to list the user from this AWS, that is from my AWS. So it could be your AWS, it could be any AWS, right? So how my system knows like I need to run the list users command from my AWS, like from this account. All right. So we have to configure it. So configure means like whatever the user I am using here. So that user ID and then the password I will set in my terminal, and then after that I will run the command. So to set that user ID and credential, so click on the users. So let's suppose I am this user, right? So there could be so many users, so but I will run this command using these users. So click on the users, I click on the particular user. So go to the security credential, because within the security only I go to know like what is my user ID and the password. So there is an access keys option. So you can see use access key to make programmatical calls from the to AWS from the AWS CLI or using the SDK as well. So from the CLI, we have to use the access key. So we can create the access key. So let's create the access key. So we have created the access key. So access key ID means just you can say it's the user ID, and the password is just you can say the password. So these we need to set, right? So let's copy the access key ID. So right now it is saying I am unable to find the credential. So and it is also saying you have to configure it using this command. So let's run this command. Configure. So AWS configure. So now it is asking access key ID. What is the user? So I have entered this user. All right. So like which user will perform this operation? Like right. So now the password. It is asking the which password. The user has which password. So this is the password. One second. Yeah. So I have entered. Now the default region. So even though like I am running the IAM command, so IAM is a global uh, like there is a global service, but let's configure the command. So let's configure the region as well. So there are so many, let's close this. So there are so many regions. All right. So we will configure the London region, EU West 2. So EU West 2. And default output format you can give JSON or just give the out like none. So now I have configured. So whenever I run this command, AWS IAM list user, now my AWS knows I need to run list user command on which AWS account. So it will go to this for like it will pick this properties and it will go to like only this account. So let's run that particular command, AWS IAM list user. So I have run this command, and now it give me all the users which exist within the AWS. So right now it exists only Smanshu and Kana and whatever the user ID it exists. So and whenever the like the user has been created. So many information it will. If there are 10 number of users, all right. So it will list all the users here, all right. And let's suppose if you have to see your configuration, all right. So using the AWS configure command, you can just configure your, but if you want to list your configuration, you can click on AWS configure list. It will show you, okay, this is the XX key ID EKF4 ending with the EKF4, right? And the password will be SNU, and this is the like share credential file, and this is the configure file, and it shows like where it has been stored. So if I click on the dir, so now you could see there is some .aws folder, right? If you go to the .aws folder, and if you do dir, you could see two folders. One is configuration, one is the credential. In the credentials folder, we have the credentials store. In the, it's not a folder, it's called a file, sorry. In the config file, we have like configuration, like which region in the credentials. So let's check. So type config. So you could see like the region has been set. So type credentials. So you could see access key ID and secret key ID. So when I run this command, it is going into the .aws folder. Dot means like the hidden folder, going into, and then going into the credentials folder, then going into the configuration folder. And on the basis of these IDs, it will execute the commands on the particular AWS account. All right. So this has been done. So like I have shown you my AWS secret access key ID. So what I will do is, because if you know this secret key ID, you can like create anything. All right. So what I will do is I can delete the secret key ID, and maybe I will rotate it. Right. So to delete it, we have to first make it inactive. Even if you go to delete it, it will not going to delete. It will give you the error message, or you can say warning. Before deleting, you must deactivate it. So first I will deactivate it. All right. So now it has been deactivated. Now I can copy it and click on delete and paste like which ID I want to delete. So now this has been deleted. So now I can create the new. So when I create a create access key, so the next time the new like access key ID, or you can say the access key ID and the secret access key, that is the user ID and the password, the new user ID will be generated, or new password will be generated. All right. So never ever share like your access key. So in this way, we can run, we can access the AWS services using the AWS CLI command, which is very helpful. Because if you actually want to learn the AWS, so we should like work rather than the AWS console, rather than just clicking on next from the AWS management console. We should like aware about the AWS command as well. At least we should aware about the where are the actual documentation. So AWS CLI commands IAM. So where the documentation exists. So we know like, okay, the documentation exists here, AWS IAM. So I can like check any other documentation as well. So if I remove this and API, uh, 1 second. Oh, AWS CLI documentation. So we can like go to the command reference or user guide. So we can like explore all the services, like whatever the services you want. So let's post AWS CLI S3 command. So it will give us the S3. All right. So if you want to perform any operation on the AWS S3, so click on the version 2. So if you want to perform copy, list, make bucket, move, so any operation you want to perform, so you can like explore the documentation. So installation is very easy. You have to just like on the Windows it's very easy. Even on the Linux and the Mac OS it's very easy. So that's a very small video. Like in the next video, maybe like we will explore more. And in the upcoming videos, we will see how to access the AWS services using the Python code. Right now, we are using the command. In the coming videos, we will see how using the Python code. So that's it. That's the end of the video. Uh, Thank you.